What's up there, everybody? This is Gabriel Visiontoon Lamette, and you've tuned in to your channel, Visiontoon Art World. I'm really happy that you guys decided to join me because today I'm going to be showing you the step-by-step sketch drawings for Iron Man, or aka Tony Stark. I thought that it would be great to be able to sketch and draw one of the major players of the Marvel comic universe, and I always have loved Iron Man, but I love how much he has become such a pivotal piece to the comic books, obviously, and then as well as for the film. So there's a lot of fans out there, so this will be a lot of fun to be able to do. Before we get into this tutorial, I will ask for you to go ahead and hit a subscribe to this channel, as well as go ahead and hit that bell icon so you can get those notifications when I have something brand new, because I've got a lot of content coming, especially because I think I might even do a little bit of Star Wars drawings coming up next. Also, please make sure that you follow me. I can be found on Facebook, I can be found on Instagram, and on Twitter all together. And at the end of the video, it'll have all that contact information so you can be able to follow everything going on with Visiontoon Art World. So, let me shut up and let's get into the reason why you clicked this video and get into some drawing. I'll be seeing you guys later. Bye. Alright, it is time. It is time to get into drawing our guy Iron Man. So, what I'm going to do is go ahead and kind of treat this in the same manner in which I do for some of my cartoons, and I'm going to start out with his eyes, because I feel that everything is going to derive and come from that aspect of his body proportion and everything. And so with drawing Iron Man, it always starts with a line to set where his metallic brow would be, almost, if you want to look at it that way. And what I'm doing to start off with this is actually going to be drawing this with a mechanical pencil, so I can be able to kind of do my sketch work and then be able to go in and do the details. So from there, then you'll go ahead and look to start the shape of his actual helmet. And so he kind of has a peak right up at the top that comes down kind of to a thin point, not to a triangle, but kind of a U mixed with a V, if you want to say it that way. And then it kind of reminds me of like a old person's hairline where it's starting to show on the sides there. That's kind of the shape of the top of Iron Man's helmet. So we'll go ahead and go in. There's a little bit of a outside hump on the side of his face. And again, this is just the sketching part, so it doesn't have to be perfect, because as you're developing this, you're able to go in and actually make your corrections as you're doing it. So it's not like what you're doing right now is set in stone. So now that I see where my sketch is really starting to lie, now I want to start to even everything out as much as possible. So I'm going to start to even out my angles here at the top. Start to even this portion out on each side, as well as evening out his eyes so they're at least kind of balanced. And then I want to start to work on the angle of this just a little bit better than what I've done so far. All right, there we go. And then I can go in and start to erase some of the things that don't matter at this point. So here we go. Now I'm just going to continue to build on top of what I've already edited. All right. Okay, there we go. So I hope you guys are able to follow along with this rather easily and rather well. Okay, so we'll go ahead and continue to go. Now, we'll go ahead and work with what would kind of be the sides of the jawline of his helmet, because he has a few layers here of how his helmet actually goes. And then we will work with the bottom of the helmet portion, or like if his mouth opened, I guess this would kind of be the bottom portion of his jaw a little bit. Okay. Now from here, we're going to go ahead and start to work with the rest of the head. So what I'm going to do is kind of do a light shaping sketch of the top of his head. Again, because you don't have to feel as though you're committed. And then give a little bit of the shape of what would be kind of like his ear area. And then once you have that in place, go on in and finish out the rest of the jaw and the chin. Okay, so now that I've kind of got this where I want it, now I'm going to start to work on the detail of where the sketch of the head would actually end up being. To kind of darken in these areas just a little bit. Okay. Okay, so now we've kind of got the premise of our Iron Man's head. Now we're going to go ahead and start to work with the neck area. And so what I want to do with this is kind of work with the shape of the rest of him as far as the neck is concerned, and then start to lightly sketch in the details of everything. So for his neck, and remember, because he's wearing armor, his neck is going to be a little bit thicker than someone who is actually just regular human, unless you're like a bodybuilder with one of those huge necks. But I'm going to just lightly sketch in some of the details of how his neck forms. All right. And put this little portion to the bottom of his neck. And then bring one more wraparound layer. There we go. Okay, so then from there comes a module that kind of connects to, I would say, where his collarbone would be. And it kind of starts here, kind of a little bit like a heart shape almost, but obviously, as you can see, it's not gonna, fold all the way in and connect, nor is it gonna be pointed at the bottom. And then there's a little box shape that goes there as well. Okay, so from here comes the compartment that leads right to his light source on his chest that helps keep the brother alive. So it kind of folds here like a little stubby tie. And then comes the shape of his unit. Right into there. All right. Now from here, the way his chest actually folds out, it's kind of an interesting thing that he has going on here where it kind of folds out like an upper portion of a chest plate. All right, so it does like an upper chest plate type of deal for him. Then you go ahead and you'll look to kind of connect from where you had the neck going in. Now some of you may be going, well, is that his shoulders? No, his shoulders are not down here, I promise you that. He's just got so many layers to him as a robot type of body frame that you have to take everything into consideration. And here's the cool thing, Iron Man has changed so many times, you can kind of put your own spin to it to a certain extent, and you'll be absolutely fine when it comes down to Iron Man. All right. So now we have that portion there, and then we're gonna go ahead and look to finish out his chest plate area. So it kind of will connect on both ends out to maybe about this point. And we'll do the same portion, or proportion, I'm sorry, with the entire portion of his chest plate area. So, even this out just a little bit so he looks a bit more balanced and even on each side. So you're going to bring that line down here, as you can see. Going to bring it on into here, dropping it to a point. There is a bit of a curved horizontal line there. Then you'll do another curved vertical line on this side, and then bring it on back down with a nice curvature to connect the shape that you were doing here. So we've got that portion of things done, and then he's got literally different plates that kind of come down. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start with the first and drop one down. And so the shape of it kind of becomes a little bit oddly shaped, but it will make sense once this is all said and done. So it'll come down with a nice curvature. Oops, lost the lid there. Then it'll slant in on both sides, and then it'll continue. And then where it becomes really kind of more detail oriented, then you establish lines that give more definition to the sides of where the top of his abdomen would actually start. So here we go. I'm always going back and doing things, and you'll see that you'll do a lot of that too as you're actually developing more drawings of any kind, actually. So we'll go ahead and start with the next layer, because he's got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 practically, but we're going to go ahead and just focus on this portion first. So this will be his second, because actually the fifth at the bottom comes down to where his growing part would be. And then bring this on in with another bit of detail. right. And then we'll go ahead and start the next one. Okay. And then we'll do the exact same thing again, because this is actually the last one that he actually has that little, if it was in color, it would be kind of like silver on each side of where the abdomen is. It's so interesting. The more you get into drawing a lot of the characters, you start to realize how much detail that when you're looking at drawings of any kind, you start to realize how much you haven't realized has gone into the details of some of the suits for many of the characters. I did a drawing of the Mandalorian one of those times and started to realize how much detail was in his costume, and I was just like, my lord, that's absolutely insane. And so kind of the same exact thing for here. All right, so now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 4 of those going, and then so now that we're on our 4th, we're gonna go ahead and, again, this is kind of a non-committed type of sketch work, but he's got more silver that goes out on each side there. And we're just gonna establish the point of where that would be. Okay, so now that we've gotten that portion of things done, we're going to finish out what would be the sides of his chest, from where his chest plate is. All right. Now he's starting to really come together, as you guys can see. So this is going to be really great before long. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue to move on with our Iron Man. And in the movie, this portion right here that I'm drawing on each side actually is a part that lights up and glows. So I'm just going to obviously just establish where that would end up being on him. And then there is a bit of a metal enclosure that I'm doing here to that light source. Okay, so now that I've got that portion in, then there's parts to his shoulders that make his robot body look more muscular. Practically, that's what it is. And it kind of connects to where that light portion would end up being, and it goes in 2 sections. So this is the first section of it, and then here is the second. So you got 1, 2, 1, 2. Now from here, you're going to go ahead and go in to start to establish the shoulders. And for the shoulders itself, it can actually come from this portion of what we just drew on both sides. So we've got that whole entire portion starting to come together. And then I'm going to just start to establish the shape of what his shoulders are. No details, just the shape. Because that's all I'm concerned about right now, because everything else will kind of fall into place after this. So as you can see, I'm doing kind of a circular shape here, and then it folds right into his chest plate on that arm. Then I'll create the shape of what would kind of be like his bicep, or not kind of, it is his bicep. So do another shape that's kind of oval like a football. Then where his tricep would come into play, I go ahead and connect that to his actual bicep there itself. Then I go ahead and look to establish his forearm. And again, this is just shape based, because we're going to go back in and really pull together all the details of this. And then from here, I'm going to do his hand. And we'll make it where his fist is kind of balled up. 1, 2, 3. And again, this is just sketch work, so it doesn't have to look perfect at this point. And then we'll do the exact same thing on the opposite side. And actually, now that I'm looking at this, let me make him a bit longer, because that arm is looking a little bit too small. So we'll extend the bicep down a bit more, his tricep down a bit more, and then go in and establish his forearm into his wrist, and then we'll go ahead and reestablish where his fist would actually end up being. Okay, so now again we'll do the exact same thing for the other side. So establishing where his actual shoulder deltoid area would end up being. So we have that there. Then his bicep is going to be a little bit more to the front, just a tad bit. So you can get the roundness, making sure that this all lines up as much as humanly possible. And then you'll barely see his tricep on this side, to be quite honest, because of the positioning. Then we'll get into his forearm shape. So now that's been set, making sure that the wrist lines up a bit more. And then where his fist will end up being. Okay. Now that we've got that portion kind of done, I'm going to just give him more of the shape of the torso for how I would like his torso to look. So, all right. Now, let's start working on these arms, man. This is where stuff gets really creative. All right, so we've got where his shoulders will come in. And according to the way his arms are actually shaped, we'll start with this definitive line here, which will give you the detail of his armor. Then from there, his shoulder actually goes in columns a bit. So this would be the first column. Then you've got a definitive line that comes across here, and then it folds over. So folds, goes around, and then it tucks right into that bicep of his armor. Then from there, you'll go ahead and establish this rounding portion of his shoulder. And it actually comes through this line here, and again kind of in a circular shape, goes all the way in and through. Okay, so we've got that portion of things working out there rather nicely. And then there is a separation line in this part of his armor. So we've got all that coming in and all the way through with the lines. And I'm just going over to reestablish where those lines really and truly fall into place. All right, now we're going to start to work on the bicep area. So the way the biceps go, it's actually just full on clear armor. And we're not going to do any of the shadowing on that. However, what we will do is establish a little bit of darkness within this area here, because a lot of our shadow work is going to be done after we're done with the actual sketching with the mechanical pencil. That's where a lot of the detail will come in, and it'll be a lot easier to establish true shadows in here. So now we'll go into his tricep. And the way his tricep is for this particular armor, it actually has a bunch of different defining lines for the tricep area. All right. Okay, then from there, we're gonna go ahead and look to work on his actual forearm area. So the way his forearm armor goes is it actually kind of, and it makes sense if you are a huge fan of Iron Man, just like I am, is it will actually kind of come out bigger than his actual forearm itself, because as you know, he can lift up a compartment and shoot rockets out and things like that, so it gives room for it. So the way it comes down, we already have the line of where his actual forearm would be, but the compartment itself rises right above it, and the shape of it is just like that. Now from there, what we'll do is go in, he's got kind of like a design of sorts that comes across and folds down. And then let me go on in and erase this portion here. All right. Alright, and then now we'll work on the inner portion of his armor. So it creates another line here, and then it kind of folds out to there, as you can see. And then it closes itself up. Alright, and then we finish off the inside of his forearm down to his wrist. Now, for the way his actual fist plate, because he actually has a plate that goes on his fist, it comes across down to here, and I'm running out of paper, I hate when that happens, but it comes down to here and then folds into where his knuckles would end up actually being. So as you can see, it will come on down to that portion there, and then he's got lines that go across here, and then they fold up. And then I'll give him one more because it comes and it folds all the way around. There we go, and there we go. And then a portion of it does come back down here, and then here is where his thumb would be. And I apologize for just getting cut off, but I really wanted to get into the details of Iron Man's upper body and everything, so you can really see what kind of goes into this. So now we're going to do the exact same thing. And what we'll do is actually we'll make our way across. So I just kind of decided that in the moment, but I think that's fine. That's why this is a tutorial. So establishing a line here and going into his chest plate to give him more depth and detail. And again, as I said earlier, the major part of the shadows and depth is going to come from when we start getting into our actual pencils here that we have. So we've got that going now. And then we'll go ahead and darken this area just a tad bit. So now we've got more of the details of his whole entire arm there into his actual chest itself. So now we're going to start to work on some of the details of his armor that would be considered around his rib cage area. So he's got a few rectangular folded shapes that really start to come in. And that's what I mean by rectangles. They're rectangles, but as you can see, they're kind of angled and show a little bit of beveled edge to them. And then he's got little compartments of every kind that seems like goes through the details of his armor. And like I said, the more you get into doing these types of drawings, the more you start to appreciate every aspect of what has taken place into creating armor or different character designs. The stuff that with just the regular eye, you're just like, oh yeah, he's wearing his armor, man, it looks cool. But when you start to see what goes into all of the depth and detail of a character, you go, man, these guys are absolutely incredible. And it makes you have an even greater appreciation for their craft of designing different characters. So there we go. And then we're going to start to kind of connect our suit to the edges here of what we have going on. So there's a definitive line that would start practically from this point and go into his armor to where the abs would technically end up being. So as you can see, there's like this shaping going in. And then you get more of the same and more, and then there's an even bigger one that folds in. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and look to really start to bring in the definition of the side here. And after studying this a bit more, because this is really coming out cool and awesome, I hope you guys are really enjoying this, but we can actually bring in that portion that was down here, to bring that all the way up now, because it's a bit different than what I originally sketched. And that's why I say, you know, doing your sketches initially, they're very non-committal, so don't waste a whole lot of time initially when you're drawing some of these characters, you know, going, oh, my sketch has to be perfect. No, it does not. Okay. So then from here, we can go ahead and put one more definitive line going in and through. And then there's another compartment to his armor that actually comes in right here and then connects right where his abdomen would be. And then I'll do a full-on shaping sketch in this area because he's got definitive lines that come in through here as well. So, and again, we're making our way across. So now I'm going to start to darken portions of his actual face or helmet, as I've referred to it several times. go. Shape that dome, and then shape that brow a lot more. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Now I'm going to be working on his neck to give more detail to that. His definitive lines. And then the details of what goes into his source of keeping his heart pumping and going. Okay, there we go. So this is starting to really form nicely, I would say. And we're going to continue to make our way on across. And the technique I like for darkening my sketches is, as you can see, I'm doing lines over lines several times, just using the hand, following the shape of what I've done, because this is sketch work. So sketching is fun because it's a lot more loose and it's a lot more free. Okay, and continue to work out this chest plate area. Let's continue to keep that ball rolling. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish out the portion of his ab plate. And then as I'm doing that, I'm going to start to build a mirroring type of imagery from what I did on the same, on this opposite side, so it looks the same. So bringing in those lines. And if you need to, go back several times to make sure that it lines up rather well, definitely do that, because that'll just make the details of your artwork even that much better. So I'm doing the same thing here, same thing here. And then there's this bigger one that comes in that folds into that. So doing the same thing here. That's looking good. Then I'm going to work with this portion in here. So right after this folds here, there's another line that comes in. So I'll do the same here. Darken that. So then I've got a little bit more of a good base to work with. And then from here, there's that other compartment that folds here, folds there. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to run out of lead here before soon. There we go. Yeah, I draw a little bit too hard sometimes and it just breaks lead after lead after lead. All right, so here we go. Doing the same thing here. Then start to bring this portion of his side on in. Then there's the thicker one that comes in and drops down. There we go. Then I can start to bring this all the way up just like I did here. There we go. Establish this fold that comes in to his waistline, and then the full on line. And I get 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and there's automatically the 4th that comes in right there. Yeah, see, this Iron Man is turning out rather well, so I hope this is really helping you guys in being able to draw Iron Man. Okay, so now I'm going to start to work with his shoulders again on this side, now that we've got details to the rest of his body. And the outside of his shoulder deltoid area kind of becomes a little bit of a hard line going across here to the rounded shoulder. Then he actually has a line that establishes itself at where he would rotate his arm a bit, because here's where the shoulder comes in, so there's a full rotation there, but there's a line here that helps to establish where that area would end up being. Then he's got 2 lines that come in. I think the real challenge is going to be whether I can keep my lead in place, man. Shoot. All right. And then there's another one that comes in and does the exact same shape. Okay, there we go. So we've got our Iron Man sketched out there. And then there's a part of his shoulder that comes to here. Compartment that starts there, and then there's that. Okay, just make it dark a little bit in there as well. All right, now we're going to work with his bicep, and just like the other one, we won't do as much detail to that because you'll save a lot of time using the actual pencils that we can get into with some of the heavier, darker leads. So here we go, that's where his tricep would end up being. And remember, his tricep has the different definition lines. Give him a little bit more. Like he's really been in the gym with his robot suit. All right, so there we go. Now we're gonna go ahead and work on where his forearm would end up being. And much like the other side, it comes in phases of compartments. So the shape of the outside would be as follows. Steps out just a bit more. Okay, and then from here, even though it's one piece, it'll actually give you a little bit of a difference, because really and truly this is red, then there is a silver portion that comes in right here, and then the rest of that follows as red, okay? So this goes up and then folds into his bicep from here, and then he's got definition lines that come in right at this part, and they stop right about there. Then finish out this portion of his tricep armor, and you bring this in, it folds in a bit, Then it comes down to this point and connects to this. And then to finish out his forearm, bring in another line there, so then it all becomes a little bit connected. Oops, dropping stuff. Okay. So now we've got that part of his forearm done and going in, and then we'll do that covering over the fist like we talked about with his other hand. So that'll go ahead and come on down. There's a definition line there, and then he's got definition rows in there, as well as they kind of fan out a little bit differently here. And then finish out the portion of his hand. Where his thumb is, his fist is closed, and we'll just do that there for that. Now, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start to do all of our details now, because that's going to be the big portion of this. And you know what I'll do is let me go ahead and just finish out his lower body so it becomes one complete drawing as much as we can. Since it's cut off, I don't want to cut him off at the waist. So that is the shape of his lower body. And right where his compartment will come down to here, there's another portion that comes down to where his male parts would be. And then there are lines that fold out here, fold out there, fold out here, fold out there. And then we've got more detail that can go into right there, as you guys can see. Okay, so now we get a chance to get into the details of sorts, and this is where it's going to get really fun in being able to bring in all the details of everything that we've been spending, you know, our last 48 minutes doing practically right now. This is going to be where we start to put in a bit of his shadowing. So the pencil I'm going to be starting out with is a 7B, which is a heavier lead. And I'm going to do a little bit of the detail work of his shadowing. Okay, so coming in, giving it just a little bit of depth. And you don't have to worry about all of your shadows being completely done through and perfect, because you're going to be able to use your smudging tool to be able to really bring in the gradation of shadowing or glares, with this being armor at the end of the day. So we'll go ahead and bring in more of his shadows and glares and flares, etc. So we've got that portion of things kind of going rather well there. And then we'll give him a little bit more shadowing here. Now with your smudging, as you can see here, again, you can start to really control that. You see how there's a gradation going? So that's why I said you don't have to commit yourself to perfect shadowing, because using this will allow for you to really put the depth in there that you want. So it's coming together with a little bit of glares and stuff like that. Okay. Now we'll get into doing more of his reds that, since we're sketching, it's going to mainly be dark for the most part. And one good cheating thing that I like to be able to do is go in after all is said and done and do a little bit of erasing so that you can get some definition within what you're doing. And then you can go in and darken certain areas with the same pencil, so you don't lose that, because that will happen sometimes, especially when you start getting into the heavier shadowing. And I'm going to make that extremely dark, because that will be a gray area, and again, it just adds more depth as you can see. All right, finish out the bottom of the jawline there. Okay, so now we'll get into some of the details of his actual neck. And we'll do the details of his neck, as you already know, via shadowing. So we'll darken right up under his chin, definitely. So we have a place to start with our darkest point of shadow. And then we'll use our smudging to bring in the softness of the shadow so it's not as hard. There we go. I'm not that happy with this portion. There we go. Okay, so now you can see we have the depth of where the shadow of his neck would end up being. And then we're going to start getting into more of his shadowing. So darken some of these lines a little bit so we don't lose all of that. Remember, this portion here is light, so we'll keep that rather untouched, so we can keep what we made an establishment on as far as what's going to be that light source on the shoulders and what's not. And with this, you can really and truly kind of play around with how you want the shadows to go. Make sure that your shadows make a bit of sense, and what I mean by that is if it's going to be a dark area, really make it your dark area. So this would be a good example. So we have the darkness here. I'm going to commit to that all in there. And then I'll even give it a little bit on his bicep. And the reason for that is because once you go in and start to smudge, it gives true depth in there. You see what I'm saying? There we go. And then into the bicep. I'm going to give him an extra bit of shadowing from what I had there. So it's coming together really nice. So I'm going to start to edge a little bit of him with some shadowing on my smudging tool. There we go. And now you're seeing exactly why I was making the statement earlier that once you start getting into doing the shadowing with, you know, your heavier lead pencils versus just with a mechanical pencil, it kind of goes rather quickly, you know. Now there are some artists that they'll spend the whole week on doing their artwork and doing the shadowing and using the different leads, and I haven't reached that point yet, but I'm working hard to get there. But for now, this is how I do mine. All right, so now we can go in and finish his forearm area there, and then let me go ahead and pull together. I can go ahead and start to pull together my shadowing. Sorry about that there, I had a prompt pop up that I had to take care of. Okay. And again, it doesn't have to be picture perfect. I will continue to say that to you. It doesn't have to be picture perfect all the time with your shadows. They just have to make a bit of sense. And you commit to whatever you're going to commit to, because your smudge tool will do the rest of the work. See, it's come together really good. One thing I was going to ask you is, if you're doing this tutorial, go ahead and send me a comment on the video, especially if there's a character you would like me to go ahead and get a stab at doing, because this is actually my first time drawing Iron Man ever in my life. I just thought this would be something really fun to be able to do, and something new to challenge myself as far as my artistic level is concerned. And I would really like that. But then also, go ahead and send me what you have done based on this tutorial. I would love to see it, just because it's great to be able to see what people within my channel are actually doing with the tutorials that I'm putting together. That's always just a fun thing to be able to do. Let me actually just darken that whole portion, because that's really and truly gray, or silver, I'm sorry, when it comes down to it. But definitely I would really love to see your version of Iron Man after this tutorial. So I greatly appreciate that interaction with you guys. Okay. That's where his light source is, so I don't want to touch that too much. But I can touch all around it. And actually, let me erase some of the darkening. Okay. See, so all these shadows are really bringing a lot of depth to our Iron Man here. And we're going to continue to move in this direction. And that's our light source here, so we're not going to mess with that again, as I said earlier. And there we go. I am going to darken a bit of this area a bit more, so we don't lose all of our detail there. And I'm going to put a little bit of glaring with the shadowing here on his abdomen portion. Oops, there we go. And then darken this area here. And then darken that a bit, just like I did on the opposite side. And then I'm going to really commit really well if you're going to do some shadows that are pretty dark. Go ahead and commit all the way, or as you know, you grew up the way I did, when somebody wanted you to do something really hard or tough, they say, put some elbow grease in it. Dude, get the elbow grease, okay? Okay. And then bringing it on his bicep as well as we did on the other side. And I'm going to let those dark shadows actually play all the way through here. And I know you may be going, man, you just covered up everything she was just doing. You know, it's going to make sense in a second, so bear with me and follow along with me. It all makes sense. There we go. See, it doesn't look that bad that way. All right, so now we're going to start to finish up his shoulder area here. Darkening these lines a bit, and then we'll start to commit the shadow within this portion of his armor. And bring in the part of his tricep area, so that makes sense. All right, and then we'll go ahead and look to complete the part of his forearm armor. Just give it a little bit of depth to darken that portion of it. And then we'll give him a little bit of glare to his ab plate. Why not? Okay. Let that darkness flow within there. And then we'll go ahead and look to just finish out the portion. Oh, almost forgot about his hand. Sorry about that, everybody. Give this plate a bit more. We can shadow this portion here a bit. And come on in. Do some of the shadowing technique there. Then we'll finish out his lower body portion. Putting a little bit of the glare with the pencil. Pulling in those shadows and glares a bit more. Letting it all merge together well. And ladies and gentlemen, we have our Iron Man. So now what I'll do, as I always say for you guys to do as well, make sure you put your signature on your artwork piece. Make sure you date it so you remember when you did it. This is always an important thing to be able to do as an artist. And there you go. Now you've got your full-on sketch drawing of Iron Man. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. This was a lot of fun to do. Like I said, this was my very first time actually ever creating Iron Man and doing the sketch work for it. And I really hope this is something that you thought was fun. Again, make sure that you go ahead and leave me a comment letting me know how this helped you. Go ahead and share this video. Also share with me who you would like to see me draw, because I think my next guy I want to draw is actually going to be Magneto. That'll be kind of fun to be able to do. And then I'm going to start doing a little bit of Star Wars stuff, because that'll be a lot of fun. But definitely let me know who you would like to see me draw so that we can work on some more cool artwork projects together. Also, at the end of this video, I do have all of my handles that I can be found on for Instagram, Facebook, as well as Twitter, so then you'll know when I've got new stuff happening. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, and make sure you also hit that bell icon so then you can get notifications there, because I've got a lot more fun stuff coming. So as always, I'm going to give you guys a thumbs up on this. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.